It all began with a dare. I always hated dares. I would rather say something truthful, even though most of the time they were false. I was invited to my friend's birthday party. He was turning 17, and I, being his close friend, decided to show up with nothing but myself. Call it what you will. I never really attended birthday parties, especially my friend Tom's. He knew I didn't like social interaction much, so he never chose to invite me. But for some strange reason, he did this time. And I, for some reason, actually went. I thought, why not? So I went in my casual attire and entered his house. I purposely came to his place a while after I was told to come, believing that most of his guests would have probably left by now. I was wrong. I came at the exact moment when Tom was about to cut his birthday cake. I had to knock a few times before his mother finally let me in. "I'm glad you made it in time. Tom's about to cut his cake," said his mother. "Good thing I made it in time," I replied. As I entered the kitchen, I was swarmed with people ushering me to come join. As I said, I didn't really take a liking for this one bit. I stayed relatively close to Tom as possible. The mere fact of brushing against someone else's shoulder gave me the creeps. Everyone started clapping after Tom had sliced his first piece of cake, as if he'd done something of great achievement. After his cake ceremony, everyone pleaded Tom to open his presents. At that moment, I called Tom over to the side and mentioned that I didn't get him anything. He seemed rather pleased and said, "Just glad you're here." His words took me by surprise. I thought he would have said something a bit more negative than that, but I was happy that he acknowledged my presence more than receiving a gift. Anyways, the day wasn't far from over. Tom began tearing the gift wrappers one by one and finally came upon the one gift that seemed to shock him. It was a cheap glass bottle and a packet. He tore open the small packet and a mess of cards began piling on his wooden floor. Truth or Dare was written on the back of every single card. It was basically a Truth or Dare spin the bottle version. That was it. Tom ordered everyone to join him in a game of spin the bottle. I disliked it very much, but just to keep my friend happy, I decided to join in. At this point, I didn't really know anyone at this party, so if either a question or dare would fall upon me that needed assistance with a second person, I wouldn't know who to call on other than Tom. The stupid bottle kept spinning and spinning. At last, it finally stopped. Its head was facing towards a girl. She was dressed in red and black, and her petite size resembled a ladybug. Her name was Stacy. Tom was the bearer of cards. He picked out a card and read, "I dare you to eat 5 spoonfuls of mayonnaise." Her size would fool anyone. She seemed quite oblivious to everything and everyone around her. Right after Tom dared her, she sprouted straight up from the floor and headed to the kitchen. Everyone quickly followed behind her. Stacy took the nearest spoon she could find, took out the mayo, and really did it. Appearances can sure be deceiving. Soon after, it was getting dark and everyone decided to leave. Tom told me to stay a while longer. He decided to play some of the questions with just the both of us. We were bored and simply read off the cards without using the assistance of the bottle. We came upon a question and it sounded rather odd to the both of us. A question that sounded very different from all the others. It stated, "I dare you to turn off all the lights, face a mirror, and say Bloody Mary 3 times." I remember it being around an hour before midnight and Tom's parents had both fallen asleep. I never believed in paranormal things before, and certainly not a myth. But my friend Tom, however, was crazy about these things. Anyways, I told him to pick the next card, but he really wanted to do the dare, but was too much of a coward to do it. This is where the real story comes in. I tell him to stop being such a wimp and to stop believing in these things because they don't exist. He then dared me. I decided to do it only to prove a point. I have no clue how I got myself in such a mess, but after that day, I was never the same person. We went into his room. I told him to stay outside because it might not work if he's with me. I closed the door without locking it and turned the lights off. I slowly headed towards his mirror and said the words 3 times. I had said them in a loud manner so that Tom would be able to hear me. It was completely quiet, so I headed back towards the door, but this time I couldn't open it. "Tom, Tom," I shouted. "Hey, are you okay in there?" he replied. "I can't get out, the door's locked." And there it was, the thing I never believed to be true. It was an old woman dressed in black and long black hair, with her mouth wide open, looking directly at me through Tom's mirror. I gave out a terrible scream, which immediately alerted Tom's parents, and they rushed into the room. I was cowering in fear behind his door, and at that moment the lights turned on and everything was back to the way it was. His parents took me downstairs and sat me on the couch and comforted me. I told Tom and his parents everything. I wasn't sure if his parents believed me or if I even believed in myself, but I'm sure as heck that Tom did. Weeks go by and I never decide to go back to Tom's place. We'd only hang outside or at school. I try not to think about it, but every so often when I do, I can't reimagine it.